All right, Rory, welcome back to another episode of Rory and Maul Don't Know Ball. Today we're going to make a little pivot, though. I'm sure you're happy about this one.
So excited.
You were an aspiring track star in your heyday.
Hey, first of all, Division I track runner. I didn't pay for my college because of these fucking legs.
Listen, I'm not knocking you. I'm not knocking. I just think today we are in the presence of track royalty.
Yeah, I mean,
4-time Olympic gold medalist, 8-time world champion, one of the fastest men ever.
Yes.
I tried to mimic his style when I was younger, when I used to run from the cops, Rory, but they caught me. I couldn't get it down packed. Today we are joined by the legendary, the iconic Mr. Michael Johnson. How you doing, sir? Thank you for joining us today.
Good, man. Good to be with you guys.
No, we really appreciate it. And
Mike, listen, hold on. Stop all that.
No,
Mike,
go ahead.
Mike, what is the skincare routine? You look amazing, man.
He's glowing.
What is the routine? What is your diet? What are you doing, man?
It's lighting a filter, man. Lighting a filter.
I respect the honesty.
Nah, it's, hey, man, just good, clean living, man. Good quality living, man. That's it.
Do you still work out every day? Like, is your regimen still, like, you still get some type of workout in every day now that you're not really competing anymore?
So I work out, but people get really confused when it comes to track because track is such a fundamental sport, fundamental to everything else because it's running.
Yeah.
The track is just like football, just like baseball, what you did as a baseball player, as a football player practicing, now that you're 57 years old like I am, you're not doing that thing anymore.
Right.
You're doing just going into the gym, getting some weights, getting some cardio. So I do that most days of the week, like 3-4 days, 4 or 5 days a week. But yeah, it doesn't look anywhere close to what I was doing when I was
Even at 34, this was actually a few years ago, I tried to do some hurdle drills just to warm up. Played myself immediately. It wasn't face plant. My leg doesn't go up the same way.
Yeah. It's an injury waiting to happen.
100%.
Man?
I ran the 400 just like you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, not just like you, but like he ran the same event that you ran.
No, we ran the same lap. First of all, 48.8 with my skin was pretty good. 48.8 was my PR.
Okay. Where'd you go to college?
St. Peter's College was my prime, and then I got kicked out. But I think I would have made the Olympics had I not punched the RA in the face.
You definitely would have. Yeah, I can see that. You definitely would have made. That's what stopped you from making the Olympic team.
I mean, Mike, I turned down Baylor to go to a commuter school in Jersey City.
Yeah, Baylor was definitely looking at you.
Baylor wanted me, but I was like, I'm gonna go transform the 400 shit over here.
Yeah.
If that were true, that would be one of the worst decisions ever, and it would also indicate, why you didn't make the Olympic team.
Yeah, they went with Jeremy Warner. Awful decision, but they went with Jeremy Warner. I got into track actually my junior year of high school because I was playing football, and my coach dragged me to the track in the off season, and that's when I found out I was even okay at this. When did you find out as a kid that you were fast? Because there's a difference between just like running in the neighborhood and then finding out you could really do this track shit.
Yeah, I mean, so those are two different things. So I knew I was fast when I was a kid when growing up. So I'm the youngest of 5. My other 4 siblings, they're quite a bit older than me. And we were always a team in the neighborhood. And so I was always playing with them. So I had to play up because I was playing with the kids that they were at their age, but I was faster than them. And so I knew then that I was fast. And like, I could beat kids that were like 5, 6, 7 years older than me.
Yeah.
So I knew I was fast, but yeah, there's a difference in knowing you're fast and just having fun in the neighborhood, being faster than the other kids and getting to a point where you realize, hey, you know what? I could have a future in this. I could go to the Olympics. I could have a professional career. I didn't really realize that until I was a senior in high school.
Yeah. Damn. No, it's a lot of the best track people I know is like, I got in this track shit way later than everyone else. Like junior, senior high school is when people start to figure that type of thing out. What was it like finding that out senior year and then ending up at Baylor, which is, I mean, the most iconic 400-meter school that's ever existed?
Yeah, it was interesting. My path was still a little bit different. Like like a lot of people in track, young kids will be in the sport just because they love it. They're having fun. They don't really know what, professional track looks like because, and that's one of the reasons I started Grandson Track is, they don't realize what a professional career could look like in track. So they're not even really focused on that a lot of times. So I didn't know, that I could have a professional career in the sport. I wasn't thinking about Olympics or any of those things. So when I started getting scholarship offers to Baylor, that's the first time I realized that, wait a minute, there may be some other future in this and there's a next level. So when I transitioned to Baylor, it was the first time actually that I first started training in a serious training program. Before that, my coach in high school was like, he was the defensive coordinator of the football team and was like, would come out literally a week before the season started and going, hey, who's running track this year? And so we never really got in shape. He didn't really know anything about coaching track athletes. And so I never actually ended up in a serious training program until I got to Baylor. That's when I started to recognize the talent I had, the potential I had, and what it was like to really train for excellence as a track athlete. So that transition was exciting, but it was tough because I'd never done that. So those early workouts at the beginning, were really, really hard and really tough for me. And I was a 200 meter. I wasn't a 400 meter sprinter when I left high school. Okay. I never run the 400. I run on the 4x4, but I never really run the 400. I was a 200 meter sprinter. And even with that, those workouts were killing me because I had never done that before. So it was quite a transition.
You have like one of the most unique running styles, probably the most iconic running style in track history. Did they try to change that when you got to Baylor? Because how fast you are and how you run Baylor, shouldn't make sense.
Yeah. So not when I got to Baylor, but when I was being recruited, all of the coaches said, hey, in order for you to reach your full potential, you're going to have to change your running style. My coach was the only one, Clyde Hart at Baylor, who was the head coach at Baylor, and my coach throughout my whole career, was the only one who didn't say, you're going to need to change your running style. And so because he was smart enough to know that, just because one person is running different than the other people doesn't necessarily mean that they're the one that's wrong, especially if they're the one that's in the front. And it turns out at the end of the day, after we started to get into it and then start to work with sports scientists to understand, was my running style, less efficient? Was it doing anything that was working against me? We started to realize that no, it's not. But my coach, you can see that with the naked eye. That no, it's a very efficient running style. Turns out, through a lot of different studies working with sports scientists, that's the reason why I was able to run so fast, because I'm able to put more force into the ground because of my upright style than most people are, all of the other competitors. I'm able to put more force into the ground. Force into the ground equals speed. Next question is going to be, well, why doesn't everybody else do that? You can't just change your running style just to be like somebody else and make it work. It doesn't work like that. If it's not natural to how you run, then you're not going to be able to emulate it. And the same thing with, athletes now when they're running inefficiently. If there's something about them that's inefficient, yes, you do need to change that running style, but it's not that easy to do. And that's why when you see a lot of people running in a way that you're like, oh man, they could run faster if they ran more efficient, and you could see with the naked eye that, yeah, that's not a very efficient style. It's really hard to do.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, the moral to the story is, my running style was much more efficient, which is one of the reasons why I was able to be as fast as I was. So had I just listened to everyone else and had not ended up with a coach who had the good sense to go, wait a minute, yeah, it's different, but is there anything wrong with it? And maybe something right with it, then I would have never maybe even reached my potential.
How did they go about doing those tests?
Yeah, it's force plates that measure, you measure the athlete running across a force plate. You see how much force is going into the ground. You measure angles with 3D motion capture cameras and things like that, which was early days back in the 90s. That was the first time in the 90s. It was the first time they even had that sort of thing. But you measure angles, you measure force. You can actually measure the force that an athlete is putting into the ground with force plates. So those are the sorts of ways that we were able to find that out.
I have to say this just quickly because we're talking about your running style. I told my dad, he was a national champion at Manhattan College as a 400 runner. I told him that we were going to talk today, and he said, tell Michael Johnson he stole my style. Because my dad ran that way too. And he was like, yo, when I watched, he's much older. And when he watched you, he was like, he took my whole thing. This was how I ran. Because my dad had a very awkward style too. But I'm for my own pop's sake, I had to say that to you. This is going to make his fucking life that I was able to tell you that you stole his style.
Mike, growing up in Dallas, we obviously know what the music scene is like in Texas. What was some of the artists that you listened to, like in high school, college, training? What was Michael Johnson listening to while he was training and preparing to be one of the fastest men in the world?
Yeah, so I started really listening to music a lot in preparation for races. So not in training, because in training it's like being at practice. Like I said, you're literally working with your coach on every single thing, getting a lot of feedback, feeding back to the coaches, a lot of interaction. So I didn't listen to music during training, but as a competitor, when you're trying to get in the zone before the race, music was a big part of my routine, just like most athletes now. But so this was the 90s, man. So I was big on West Coast hip hop, Tupac, Snoop, Death Row, that whole thing. So it was a lot of, for me, being a 200 meter sprinter and a 400 meter sprinter, which both of those events are very, very different. Mm-hmm. The music was critical to getting me in the type of mode that I needed to be in for the 200 meters and then also for the 400, which was different. So the music was different. So, for example, the 200 meters is a very aggressive race. You got to be quick, fast. It's all aggression from the gun, from the get, right? So I would be listening like some Tupac, like Me Against the World, something like that, right?
Wow.
But the 400, if I took that same approach, that's going to get me in trouble. I got to be a much more tempoed race. Okay. It's aggressive at some points, but at some points it's not. So I would be listening to not like some smooth R&B, because that's a little too smooth and really not going to get you where you need to be. But it wouldn't be as aggressive as like some Tupac. So I'd be listening to something like, what might be? I'm trying to remember what I would listen to for 400. It might be some up-tempo like D'Angelo, not the smooth, like
some Devil's Pie premiere shit.
But yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah, exactly.
Did you ever run into Pac? I mean, especially 96 Olympics. I feel like.
Do I or did I?
Did you? Did you ever run into Pac, like personally?
Did you? Oh, okay. Do I? Like, right.
He's still alive, in my opinion. I'm on that side of the conspiracy.
You one of those on the conspiracy. Yeah. Nah, yeah, I did back in the day, man. Man, it was really cool. Interesting. The first time I met Pac was at a club here in LA when he and Mike Tyson had both just got out of prison, and we were hanging out at this club, and it was kind of surreal just that we just sitting at this bar, like hanging out at this club, and I'm the odd one out because I had not been to prison.
Yeah, like you couldn't share those stories.
But that's a good circle not to be a part of.
Yeah. If you want to be the oddball, that's the perfect time to be the oddball.
Both were like idols, though. Both were like idols for me, man. Even though we were at the same, sort of same time, it was like they were. I mean, it was. I'm sitting here with this dude. I listen to your music to get ready for my races.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you share that story with him? Did you let him know that he was somebody you listened to when you were?
Yeah.
That's dope.
I mean, not the part about being the odd one.
So I'm sorry you went through that, Pac. I can't relate. I know it's interesting with track athletes because when the Olympics rolls around every 4 years, y'all become the biggest celebrities ever, but it's every 4 years. So it's a weird cycle. When you ran into musicians, rappers, or anything, did people know who you were in the early 90s, like pre-96 Olympics?
No, not pre-96. Not pre-96. It was rare before 96. And then, and that's the thing, for track athletes. I mean, I was an Olympic champion, world champion, making history in the sport, world record holder, doing all of these things. And nobody really knew, in that situation, had it been, this was after 96 from that example I just gave, but pre-96, I wouldn't have been in that situation. I wouldn't have been there in that group. Probably wouldn't have been in that club, and then, but I had the good fortune of, making history in 96 at the Olympics here at home as well, which captured everybody's attention. And it was a really special moment in history, right? And I was able to accomplish something significant in the sport at that moment when the world is watching. And it's rare that a track athlete will get that opportunity, right? So that's why track athletes are, like you said, you're in that moment, but everybody might see you and they might remember your name for a bit, but you don't have the opportunity to really sort of establish yourself and your greatness in the general, public's consciousness, unless you have the opportunity to sustain that and keep doing it and keep performing against the best. That's the reason why I started Grand Slam track, because I was able to be fortunate to have that opportunity, but most track athletes don't, because we only have that opportunity once every 4 years. You think about, like we were talking about, as a kid, running track. And like I was saying, I didn't even know that there was a professional track, that even existed, because there was no exclusive home for the fastest people.
Right.
Where we have that now, every other sport has that. So if you think about a 13-year-old kid out on the basketball court shooting baskets, you're like, what do you want to do? What's your dream? Play in the NBA, right?
Yeah.
I'll play in the WNBA.
Mm-hmm.
If you think about a tennis player, same situation. NFL is saying, football is NFL. You think about tennis, like, I want to play in the Grand Slams. I want to be a top-ranked tennis player. If you're a golfer, I want to play on the PGA Tour and now the LIV Tour. They have that exclusive home. Everybody knows where the best of the best in that sport plays.
Right.
You ask a 13-year-old track kid, what do you want to do? What are they going to say? I want to go to the Olympics.
Right.
But that only happens every 4 years. So, so even if you do get the opportunity to do it, it's not a real future, because we don't have an actual exclusive league. So what we're doing with Grand Slam track is establishing a specific league at the top of the sport for the best of the best athletes, just like every other sport has. UFC is the home of, MMA. It's the best place for it. Everybody knows that the best play there. Same thing with track. Now with Grand Slam track, that's where you go. So that 13-year-old kid now will be like, what are you going to do? I want to run the Grand Slam track. I want to be part of that league, because that's where the best actually compete.
Yeah, no, I definitely hear that.
Going into the Olympics in '96 in Atlanta.
Right before we get to the '96 Olympics, I have 1,000 questions. I have one 92 games question. What did you eat that night?
So I was. We had a lot of different stuff at this restaurant. It was actually a week before the Olympics. And I ended up going to this restaurant, getting food poisoning. We had ham. We had all these, it was delicious. It was great. It was an amazing restaurant. And unfortunately, man, got food poisoning. Cost me. I was world champion. I was a heavy favorite to win the Olympic gold medal that year in the 200. Yeah, and the food poisoning just, wrecked my preparation. And that's the thing too. It's like, as an Olympic athlete, when you know that, this is only every 4 years. It's not every year you get a chance to go back and try again. You know that I may not ever get this chance again.
Right.
I got to wait a whole nother 4 years. So it was a devastating experience. I did see everything work.
Do you remember the name of?
Later, I came back. I do not remember the name of the restaurant.
Okay, because I was going to leave
the name of it.
Terrible Yelp review.
Go back there. I don't want to.
That's all I wanted to do was leave awful Yelp reviews. I wanted to know before we got to 96 games. I'm sorry for interrupting you,
good.
But I had to know so we could find that restaurant and get crazy on Yelp in 2025 of what they did.
Don't ever eat there. They may be closed by now. Hopefully they're closed.
They better be closed.
Yeah, hopefully they're closed. And watching the Sprint documentary on Netflix, one of my favorite documentaries in the last recent years that I watched, I learned a lot about the sport and just the thought of, like you said, you train and you prep for years for this 10, 20-second window. Going into the 96 Olympics, the whole world watching, when you debuted the gold sneakers, like how hard was it to keep those sneakers under wrap and just debut them on the track? Because I remember watching it, and when you stepped on the track with those sneakers, everybody was like, yo, we need those. We never wore track sneakers a day in our lives, but those gold sneakers, everybody in the hood was like, yo, when are those dropping? And did you have anything to do with the design of those sneakers?
He's also a novice. They're called Spikes.
So I worked with Nike on that project for a year and a half to make this the lightest, most innovative track spike ever. I decided on the color, decided to make them gold. It wasn't just that they were gold. Also, the design was completely different than anything anybody had ever seen in the sport before. So we debuted it. We teased it a bit at the trials with a purple pair.
Yeah.
Same shoe.
Yeah.
Purple. And everybody went crazy. And what was hard, to your point, was like everybody sort of knew that, well, then if this is what you're doing at the trials, you're probably doing something different at the games. Is it going to be different? I did confirm that it was going to be different. And that just sent the media just scrambling, trying to find what is it going to be? What is it? What's the way, and so it was about a month later, the games was a month later. So for that month, it was under not a lot of people had seen the goal. It was like only a handful of people. We kept it really tight.
Yeah.
So nobody had seen the goal. We actually did a release the day before my first race in Atlanta for the Olympics, where we revealed the gold shoe. So by the next day, just enough people knew, from having seen it, in that press release. And people went crazy. And so then the crazy thing after that was every time, so I had 8 races, 4, rounds of the 400, 4 rounds of the 200. Mm-hmm. Every time I went out, this was back in the days of flash bulbs that was on the camera, right? There was no camera phones. Yeah. And if you watch, if you watch the video, every race, you'll see just like there's flashes going off all the way around the track as I'm running, because people are just taking pictures the whole way around. Yeah. And they're taking pictures. And you look at some of those pictures that people have taken, and they took pictures of the shoe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not me running.
Yeah. Just the shoe. Was it tough though? Like, did you feel any added pressure? Because obviously the sneaker is gold. So it's like you can't get silver or bronze and have on gold sneakers. So you're committed to this gold shoe. Nike has obviously put this whole campaign, this whole thing together with this gold sneaker. Did you feel any added pressure, like, I have to win because if not, I have these shoes on, these gold shoes on, and I'm accepting a silver medal? It just doesn't translate.
Yeah. So I made the decision. They were shocked when I made the decision. They said, what color you want it to be? When I said I want it to be gold, they were shocked. I'm like, you sure? Right. But that was, for me, it was, I was confident that I was going to win gold. Everything for that entire year leading up to that Olympics, that whole season, it was all about winning gold in both the 200 and 400. Anything short of that was going to be a failure. And for me, it was more, and I saw it as an amazing opportunity to do something special at this Olympics in Atlanta, at a home Olympics, being in the U.S. And so I was just more focused on that and not focused. There's some situations where you have to be more focused on the opportunity. So you're taking a more offensive mindset versus trying to defend against the possible backlash or the positive negativity or the possible failure. Because then if that's your mindset, then you're not going to be in position to take advantage of the opportunity. So the opportunity for me was, okay, if I go out here, I already believe that I'm going to make history. I'm going to win both of these races. I'm going to win 2 gold medals, and I'm going to do it at home. If I do it with some amazing style that just wows everybody, that's a huge opportunity. That will, sort of burnish my legacy forever. People will forever remember that moment. Right. And this will allow me to transcend the sport. Right. Which is what I'm trying to do right now, help these athletes transcend the sport. It was really difficult back then because, again, as you said, track, it's only every 4 years. After the 4 years in between, nobody really pays attention. And that's been the case ever since. So this is my opportunity. If I was focused more on hey, I don't want to draw too much attention to myself because I might not win, then I've missed that opportunity.
Right.
Yeah.
You're right, it would have been, backlash. People would have been jokes, everywhere. It would have been, there was no memes back then, but that would have become a meme.
No,
absolutely.
Twitter would have went crazy in
there with
96.
gold shoes, winning a silver medal or bronze medal, everybody would have talked about that. But yeah, if you focused on that, then you missed the opportunity.
I mean, of course, you had gold on your mind when those races. Did you have a time in mind, and was the world record also on your brain, or was it just winning the gold?
So it was all about winning, because that's the objective. I was already the world record holder in the 200. But I thought, as far as times are concerned, I'm going to have to break the world record again in order to win this race, just because that was the quality of the competition. So Frankie Fredericks, who got the silver in that, broke the old world record as well in second place. So I already knew that it's going to take another world record. Just how far under the world records are going to be, I already knew I was going to break the world record again, because when I broke it before, I barely broke it, and that was by far not the perfect race.
Yeah.
Take us back to the first time you remember seeing Usain Bolt. Like, what did Michael Johnson think about when he first saw Usain Bolt running?
2004 was the first time I saw Usain at the 2004 Olympics. And he didn't make the finals in the 200. He was probably 18 years old, maybe at that point. But we had heard about him down in Jamaica, that this really tall kid, Jamaican, coming out of Jamaica, was just this phenom. So at that point, you're thinking, there's a lot of talent that comes out of Jamaica. I mean, they manufacture so many sprinters down there. So you're like, okay, they got another one, he's just different because he's really tall. He was very gangly, so you thought, yeah, he's got potential and he might do something special, one of these days. But a lot of people have that potential. So it wasn't until 2008 that you started to see that, okay, and it happened really, really fast. It wasn't like, between 2004 and 2008, he was really, doing anything. He was having some injuries and things. But again, you always knew that potential was there. In 2008, it just all came out.
I mean, Asafa Powell was the guy at that time in 2008. I was at Icon Stadium when they had that race at Randall's Island, and that shit changed everything. Like, it was like, who the fuck is this kid? I mean, I always feel track is 70% mental and 30% physical. What is going through your brain in the blocks, in the 200, and then what's going through your brain in the 400? Just when you're in the blocks getting ready.
So it's the same for both of those races when you're in the blocks. And the thing is, that just like any other sport, the best of the best know that it doesn't matter. It's not a 70% mental, 30% physical, 30% physical, 70% mental, all of that. It's not about that. What matters is that being able to be physically prepared, having trained as well as you possibly can, is one component. Being able to be mentally and emotionally in the right mindset in those moments before you go out there, and those nerve-wracking moments before the gun goes off, being able to be in the right mindset to go out there and execute your best race matters. The ability in the race to make the right decisions and execute the strategy and make the right adjustments in real time in a 19-second race or even a 9-second race matters. Nutrition matters. Recovery matters. All of those things matter. So instead of focusing on, well, how much is this one? This one's 10%. This one's 25%. This one's 70%. Everything you want to be 100% on all of those things. That's what the best of the best in any sport does. So understanding that, you want to be in training every day, focused on being 100% physically prepared and in your best shape when you get to the race. In your warm up and preparation, you want to already have an understanding of how you mentally get yourself in the right mindset to be able to deal with the pressure and deal with the nerves and be able to manage that so that you're able to go in and not have to run tight. You can run your best race. In those moments just before the gun goes off, everybody's figured out what their routine is. the best of the best athletes.
Right.
Those who aren't haven't figured that out yet. And so they're sort of just kind of subject to the moment and whatever sort of thoughts might come into their mind. But the best athletes already know here's what I need to do in order to be at my best when this gun goes off. For me, that was being at the height of focus and only thinking about what's the first step I've got to make? What's the first action I have to take when this gun sounds? I can't be 10 seconds into the race. I can't be thinking 20 seconds into the race. I damn sure can't be thinking about what's going to happen after the race or the end of the race. You got to be focused on the moment. When you're talking about a sport, the one thing about track that's different and calls for is it calls for focus like nothing else. We don't have any half times. We don't have quarters. We don't have timeouts. You can't call timeout. The gun sounds, especially for sprints, there's no adjustments. So the 100 meters, you can't really make an adjustment in that race. 200 meters, you might be able to get away with one adjustment if you make a mistake. 400 meters, got a little bit more time to make adjustments. But at the same time, because it's a long sprint, the margin for error is much higher because there's way more time to make mistakes that you have to then adjust for. So it takes a lot. So all of this is, takes place at 19-second race. I mean, when you're standing behind the blocks, it's the Olympic final, you know that 19 seconds from now, I'm either going to be the Olympic champion or I'm not. And it all comes down to how I execute right now. There's no timeout. There's no next year. There's no halftime. I can't, there's none of that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you agree with a lot of the flack that Noah Lyles gets because of his demeanor, his bravado? He's very, his approach and his style is a lot different. I laugh at people that don't like him because I'm like, listen, he just seems like he's just confident in what he does. A lot of people are more laid back in track. You don't really have a lot of, people in track that have these big personalities. But I just think that that's part of the newer generation and the new era is that you have social media and you have all of these outlets that you can use. And I just think Noah Lyles is a product of that. Do you agree with some of the backlash, or do you understand how some people kind of like don't like Noah Lyles' personality and would rather him just run and not be so, I guess, loud?
All of that. That's the world we live in, where everybody has a right to their opinion to like or dislike any person in the public for how they actually are, how they look, who they are, what they say, how they go about their business, and that's the case with Noah. He's the Olympic champion, world champion. He has decided how he wants to build his brand, who he wants to be, how he wants to be. And you're going to have people who are going to support that, and you're going to have people who are not. You're going to have people who are saying you shouldn't do that, just like you have people who said that Usain Bolt shouldn't be, out there playing to the crowd and whatnot like he does before. You have people who said I shouldn't be so bold as to wear gold shoes. You have people who said Carl Lewis was trying too hard to be a celebrity. Are those people wrong? They're not wrong. That's their opinion. There's no right or wrong to an opinion. Everybody has their opinion. And if don't nobody have an opinion about you, then you ain't doing good enough. Yeah. Well, I mean, if you don't want to be known, which some people don't, then great. But if you want to be known, you do what you want to do, and Noah's doing what he wants to do. But the thing is, though, at the end of the day, Noah shows up in races and he calls his shot, and you gotta respect that, that he goes out there and he calls his shot. I think that, he has put himself out there. I just hope that he can handle, because you have to understand how much of the backlash you can handle, because he makes some bold claims, he makes some bold statements along with that, and if you're going to make bold statements, first, you better be right. If you're not right, and sometimes he's not right. And then he has to come back and apologize because he got his facts wrong, but he made a bold statement, So that's the first thing. And then you're going to have backlash when you make bold statements. And especially, again, if you're not right about what you say, then there's going to be backlash. So, that's, and maybe he's good with that.
Yeah, I feel like track runners, like even like Shakur, have gotten backlash they don't deserve because I think track is similar to boxing. I know that sounds like a very insane take, but it's one of the few sports outside of the relays that is just me versus you. It's the purest. Boxing and track, to me, are the two purest sports on earth. They're also the only sport that has to deal with survival as well. fighting and running. I don't understand why track runners don't treat the Olympics or even World Games or any meets like boxing. You have to market yourself before every single fight. That's part of the sport. I don't think track runners should be quiet. I love what Noah Lyles is doing. You should treat every single meet like it's a boxing match. To market it, promote, like you're going to make your money off the promotion. Boxing only lasts for this amount of time. Like that's what it should be.
I agree with you, but I think the issue has been up until now. And again, this is one of the reasons why I created Grand Slam Track. So we can actually be a home for that, where we can, athletes can feel more comfortable being themselves.
Yeah.
But look, what we always tell our racers, and we have 48 of them in our league, and they're all Olympic and World Championship medalists and champions, is to be authentic, because at the end of the day, look, that's one of the things that probably isn't going to fly too many other places other than maybe in boxing. But if you're not authentic and you're just trying to put on a personality and wear it, you better be damn good at it. Like WWE, they're good at it. They're amazing at it. They can convince you, because it's how they're built. They're really good at it. But if you're not really good at that, and that isn't the sport, WWE, that is the craft. Being really good at selling people on a persona and being good at, presenting that persona. And in every other sport, it's the craft is the sport itself, the skill of the sport. So in track, the skill is winning races, being faster than the other people. You're probably not spending your time trying to actually create and exhibit a persona and make people buy into that persona. You're probably, now there are people out there who think they're good at it, and they're failing, to come, at it, but they think they're good at it. But look, this, today's audience, I'm not one of them. I'm not one of these young people out there that's consuming that, but they are very good at sifting through bullshit.
Yeah.
They don't buy it. They're not going to buy it, right? I'm not one, but I know them very well. A lot of them work for me, and I study them, and we have to as a league. They're not buying bullshit. So we try to lean into the actual authentic personality of our racers. And then, because there's somebody out there who's just like you, no matter who you are. If you're a nerd, there's somebody out there who's a track fan that's a nerd. If you're into, whatever, gaming, if you're into, animals, if you're religious, whatever it might be, there's someone out there who loves track, who loves sports, and they're just like you, and now you're their person, right? Yeah. So, look, if it's not natural to you, trying to come out, and be like a boxer and, and do all it doesn't work, So we have rivals in Grand Slam Track. We have people who have rivalries, and some of the folks are, quiet and, and they just kind of go, okay, we'll see. We'll get there, Right. And then you got some that are like, I'm gonna kick your ass. I'm gonna do all of this, like that. And then you got some who are like, just want to just kind of sit back and go, I got nothing to say. I let my legs do the talking. Say that then.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. And we and it works, and it works brilliantly. And we promote all of that in our race group. And our men's 1,500 meter runners, gold, silver, bronze from the Olympics on the podium. We signed them all to the league. They're a good example of that. They're all different, and they all take their individual approach. But you ask them who's going to win, they all say, it's going to be me.
Right.
Like, okay, well, you got to go through that person. They're like, I know I'm going to have to go through them, and I will go through them.
Right.
And some do it from the perspective of being a nerd. Some do it from the perspective of being, I'm King Kong. Right. And, and it's just different. Right. Yeah. But it's authentic. And that's what I think our fans appreciate. That's why they love it, because it's authentic. They're all themselves.
Yeah. No, I hear that and love that. To quickly go back to the 96 games, where were you when the bomb went off in Centennial Park?
I was right across the street. I was at the Hyatt. I was staying at the Hyatt at CNN Center, which is right across the street.
It's our go-to hotel.
It was 2 nights before. It's the Omni, I think now.
Yep. Yep. It's our go-to hotel.
It was 2 nights before my first race, and I was asleep. I had just went to sleep. I just gone to sleep, and then my phone kept ringing. It was my brother. He had just got in town. He's like, "You okay?" And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Man," he's like, "There's all these police coming by me. I just got in town on the highway." He's like, "They set a bomb went off somewhere over near your hotel." And I was like, "What?"
Oh, you didn't even hear it?
I didn't hear it. No. But yeah, it was literally right across from my hotel, right across the street, and it was 2 days before. So the next day, we weren't sure if we were even going to run the next day, and ultimately they decided not to postpone the games, and so we went on.
Was that added pressure outside of the immense pressure already?
Yeah, that has to like change your whole
they blowing shit up.
Mental. Yeah, like how does an athlete?
No, I think it was kind of understood that it was an isolated event, and then there was one casualty from it, which was obviously unfortunate, but at that point, you're just so locked in, that you just focused on the task at hand and what happens on the track, and I don't think there was any concern at that point, given that, and at that point, they weren't even sure if it was an accident or what it was, right? Then they did find out it was a bomb, but it felt like they felt like it was an isolated event. So we just got on with it.
Recently, there was something to kind of laugh at in track and field. Runners
There's always something to laugh at in track and field, man. We keep the drama going.
But this one, and talking to somebody like you who's obviously track royalty, what did you think about the relay runners and the girl with the baton who said it was an accident with her hitting the other runner in the head with the baton? Now, I've never ran track. Just looking at it, it's not a natural. That wasn't a natural motion.
That was her running style.
No, that was not a natural fucking motion. So, as just asking Michael John, what do you think? Looking at it, did you laugh when she said it was an accident and she didn't see her? Like, as a runner, what did you think in that moment?
I thought it was crazy, right? It was pretty crazy. The initial reaction was, what the hell is going on here, right? This is crazy, right? But I think that both of you guys kind of represent, the two different opinions, which is, like she does have a crazy running style. It looks a little crazy, right? And then she was, knocked off balance, but it looks like, from your perspective as well, it looks like, she kind of wound up,
Exactly.
And so look, man, I think you're going to have I don't know, I wasn't there. I don't know what was happening. Everybody's got their opinions on things. I'm a fact-based person. If I don't have the facts, then I don't tend to go in on an opinion. I don't think my opinion really matters on this, right? I don't think it's consequential to the situation, and it doesn't really matter to me either.
Yeah.
But looking at it, it's kind of it's one of the wildest things I've seen in quite some time, right? I mean, it's pretty wild. It's a pretty wild situation, and at the end of the day, the thing that still seems to be most unfortunate is that, these two young athletes, are, in a situation where, to my understanding, there hasn't been an apology, even if there was an accident, that was the thing that I think just compounded the situation that, you didn't go over and apologize and literally left the track that day, just, having just hit someone in the head with the baton.
Right.
And which just sounds crazy just even saying that, right? I mean, and it looks even crazy.
Especially where we from,
haven't
Mike.
seen it. Yeah, go check it out because it is crazy. But that was unfortunate though. That's the main thing that came out of it is unfortunate, regardless whether it was intended or not. And I have no problem saying that. I don't know what happened, but it's really difficult to convince anybody. You're going to have a hard time convincing anybody that wasn't intentional.
Exactly.
I gave her grace when I saw the first angle when they were coming around the corner. I was like, all right, maybe she did stumble. Then I saw the camera angle from the other side, like on her back. And I was like, oh, she just knocked that chick out.
It was definitely
there was not a running style at all. No, she clearly did that, which again, to your point, I've never seen some shit like that. I was running on 168th Street, Armory, in Washington Heights where there'd be fights after track meets. I've never seen anyone hit somebody with a baton in my life.
Right.
That is insane.
Right. Mike, quickly, how does it feel watching your world record be broken?
But it's a good question. I get asked that question a lot of times because the automatic assumption is that, you're sad that your record got broken. When Usain broke my 200-meter record, I was 8 years into my retirement. Mm-hmm. I had been retired for 8 years. Mm-hmm. When Wade Van Niekerk broke my 400-meter world record, I had been retired for 16 years. Mm. And I was in the stadium as a television commentator for BBC for both of those races. Mm-hmm. And look, in the 8 years from the time I retired to when Usain broke my record, in the 16 years, I had never introduced myself as the world record holder because it was not part of my identity. Mm. It's not how I see myself as still the world record holder. Mm-hmm. When I was competing, I saw myself that way. And if anybody had broken my world records when I was competing, then that would become mission number one is get it back.
Okay. Mm. Makes sense.
When you're retired from the sport, you're not going to go get that record back.
Right.
And just holding on to it, doesn't really, I've always been about goals and accomplishments. Mm-hmm. And, it's not, those 8 years, like people always say, oh man, you held on to that record for 16 years in the 400s. Like that's a long time. Like I didn't do that.
Right.
Just nobody had run faster, but that wasn't anything that I did.
Right.
You could say, okay, well, you put it so far out there, okay, yeah, that's cool. But the thing is again, it's about the accomplishment. Mm-hmm. I still remember how hard I worked and how long I chased both of those records. And I remember the day I broke it and the team that worked with me to help me break them. Mm-hmm. That's what you remember. You'll cherish that moment forever. It's the accomplishment. But the idea that you're going to hold on to a record, till you die. I mean, by the time I, had retired, I moved on to doing other things and I was accomplishing other things as an entrepreneur, and so I wasn't caught up in being the world record holder. So things didn't really change for me. I remember going into the studio the next day after the record was broken, and one of my co-hosts on another show that I do for BBC during the Olympics, she was like, everybody's like, are you okay? And I was like, what? Is somebody dying? Like, what is going on, right?
Did you have, all right, so when Usain Bolt broke the 100-meter record, it almost felt like he jogged through the fucking line of how amazing he was. As a track icon, you understand body language and facial expressions. He fought for that 200. I've never seen Usain Bolt put in the effort he did to break that record. While you were watching it, it was like, all right, cool, but Usain has never looked like he was struggling until it was time to try to break your record. His whole face on that 200 we had never even seen Usain look like that.
But he has always said and has said then, like the 200 meters was always his favorite race. That was nobody even thought he was ever going to be a 100 meter runner.
Why? It doesn't even make sense. So
200 meters is his race.
Should be a 400 runner.
That's the one that he wanted most. And but you knew it was coming. I remember the day of that race and I was doing some analysis for BBC and I was like, I'll be shocked if he doesn't break this world record, right? Mm. And what's crazy that I thought he was going to run. So ultimately he ran 19.18, right? Which is the world record today. But when he broke it the first time, what I ran was 19.32 and he ran 19.31. Mm. And you could just tell that day, even his demeanor was different. Like, I'm going to break this record no matter what. I don't care what it takes, right? Because that's the one that he always wanted. And I think that was the one also that he probably felt like, if I'm going to break it, I'm going to break that one first. And it didn't come first. The 100 came first. Mm-hmm. So I know it was something he always wanted. But I didn't feel like he was struggling. I felt like he was just, if you look at it, he's just trying really hard, which is actually what you shouldn't do.
Yeah, right? We've never seen his swagger and his calmness was
trying really hard. Yeah, because I think in the 100 it was always sort of I'm gonna get this record. When the first time he broke it, he shocked himself. He wasn't even expecting to break it. Nobody thought he was gonna break it. It came out of nowhere. Mm-hmm. The next time he broke it, I think at the Olympics in in 2008, I think then it was kind of like, I think I know I'm going to break it again. But the 200, he was trying hard, and he really wanted it and got it.
Yeah,
Mike, quickly before we let you go, talk to us a little bit more about Grand Slam track. What is the goal outside of just giving runners a home when it's not the Olympics? What is the goal and the mission with Grand Slam track?
Yeah, the ultimate vision for it is, Grand Slam track should be the Formula One, the UFC of track, of the fastest people in the world. And so we know that there's a fan base out there for this sport. They watch it every year. There's over 100 million people a year watching 2 track meets, over 300 million people a year watching at least 2 track meets. Mm-hmm. And during the Olympics, everybody's watching the sport. They love it, and it's their favorite sport. So the structure of the sport just has not been sufficient because there hasn't been a true home for these athletes as a league. So we feel very confident that we can get there. And so it's delivering to fans the same type of epic competition between the fastest people with storytelling, highlighting these personalities. But primarily, the main thing here is having the fastest people competing against one another, which we typically don't see outside of the Olympics because the structure hasn't been there to actually compensate the athletes in order to make it worth their while. We put these athletes under contract. We have the fastest people on the planet under contract in this exclusive home for them with Grand Slam track.
Why hasn't I mean, I'm happy that you're doing this, but why hasn't it been anything like this with track? Like, what do you think is in the way of that?
It's a little bit complex, but as an Olympic sport, it's been primarily been left to global federations, the global governing bodies of the sport. Mm-hmm. Governing bodies are great at rules and governance. That's what they do really well. Mm-hmm. They're not great at marketing and commercialization, which is what it takes to be a modern, thriving sports property. And it typically takes a for-profit, private, unpolitical organization to be able to do that, which is what we are. We're a venture-backed, private, for-profit, entity, just like most other professional sports are. Mm-hmm. So no one has been able to marshal all of the resources as well to understand the sport at the level that I have, having been an athlete, having represented athletes. Jeremy Warner was one of my clients for my sports management company, represented. So we represented athletes. I've been a television commentator for 22 years covering the sport as well. Mm-hmm. So I understand the sport at sort of all angles, and have been able to recognize, what is needed in order for this sport to be able to thrive. But then you also have to have the ability to then sort of step outside of the sport. I'm a fan of the sport, but typically, as a fan, you're sort of protective of, the sport and what it has always been and how it's traditionally been. And that can be, it's almost like that thing, like if you hug something too tight and squeeze it, you'll squeeze the life out of it and you don't let it thrive. And that's sort of what happens a lot with track. We have a lot of people that are involved in the sport and have been for many years that love the sport, but they love it too much that they don't let it thrive. And so what has happened is, as you've seen the media landscape and how broadcast media and traditional media has changed in response to social media and digital media, and how all of those things are changing. Those things are changing as well as people's viewing habits and the way fans engage with sport and engage with entertainment. All of those things have changed. Most sports continue to change along with that out of necessity. Mm-hmm. As an Olympic sport, you don't feel oftentimes like you need to change, and then you want to hold on to this traditional way of doing things, and that has caused the sport to fall behind dramatically. And so we are, kind of sit outside of that structure and have the ability to do things that are much more, create a much more modern presentation of the sport and capitalize on all of the sort of digital technology tools that are out there, but also to understand what people's viewing habits are, what they really want to see, how they want to engage with sport, and be able to build our league around all of those things.
That's amazing. And any way we can help out with that, like, on the commentating side, content around it, we're here.
Yeah, I would love to come out and just see the whole.
Let's do that. Let's do that.
Incredible.
Buy some tickets and come to an event.
100%.
Well.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah.
If you're not, watch it on TV. You know,
we
need all
definitely
the
will.
support we can get. Yeah.
Can I put you on the spot right before we let you go? I see the ring on your finger, so if you want to pass on this question, it's totally fine. There was an article this year talking about how freaky the Olympic Village gets and how many no, I'm telling you, there was it was in the New York Times of how many condoms are used at the Olympic Village. You could pass on the question, it's fine. I'm gonna ask it though.
Look, man, I mean, if I could answer it, I would. I can't because I never stayed in the village. So whatever was going on,
shit.
I missed all of that.
They had Mike in the penthouse. They had Mike in his own fucking crib. Mike, he wasn't with you peasants. The world's fastest man is not staying in the village. I never stayed
in the village, man. But I heard the stories, but I never stayed in the village.
I respect it.
Mike,
so
listen,
I missed out on whatever was going on. It sounds like it was epic, but I missed it.
It sounds like it was a great time, but I missed it. Mike, listen,
those
man, we
archery
appreciate
girls
you,
were going
man.
crazy.
We appreciate you. Congrats with everything you're doing with Grand Slam track. We definitely gonna support it. Definitely want to come to a couple of events and races just to see everything that you're building with Grand Slam. We appreciate you. It's an honor and a privilege to have some time with you. And thank you for entertaining us over the years. Thank you for giving us something to look at and just be in awe of. And just thank you for kicking with us today. Man. We appreciate it.
As a former track runner, thank you so much for what you're doing with Grand Slam. That means a lot to track runners to finally make this thing really matter and actually get what we're worth in this entire thing. So any way we can help, I am here for sure. So thank you so much.
Appreciate that, man. Appreciate you guys. Appreciate the support.
Thank you, man.
Appreciate you.
All right. Take care.
Peace.